Okay, glad you're here today. We didn't know if anybody was going to show up or not, and we're glad to see you. My name's Don Cusick. I'm on the faculty here, and I am very pleased and proud to welcome a former student back with campus, and that is Chad Jeffers. Chad, of course, was a great musician while he was here, and then after he graduated, has played with Kenny Loggins, played in Keith Urban's band for a while, and is now playing with Carrie Underwood. He's also an author and has written some stuff that we're going to talk about in a while. In fact, he's going to do a lot of talking, and I will welcome questions because my voice is about gone, and I can almost sing in a gospel quartet. My bass line. But anyway, we'll start it off. Chad, you're going to play a little something.
You guys want to hear a tune?
Yeah.
All right, well, this is a dobro. So a lot of people, they're not really sure what it is, but it's a slide guitar. So you play it with a slide in your left hand and finger picks in your right. And it has a sound sort of like that. Anybody familiar with a dobro? Some people? All right. All right, here's a little tune that I wrote. Guys, thank you. I'm Chad Jeffers, and first of all, thank you to Belmont for having me. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Don. I did go to school here back in 94 to 98. Got a degree in music business, well, a lot of you guys, as well as another degree in marketing. Whenever I was about to get out of school, how many seniors do we have in here? Yeah, quite a few. All right. Well, my last semester, which is what you guys are in probably, I was thinking, what in the heck am I going to do when I get out of school? Anybody feeling like that? And so what I was doing, I was playing the dobro. And of course, not too many people call you when you play the dobro. But I was starting to get more and more phone calls. But I started to think, did I major in a minor thing in terms of playing this guitar? And but I still just worked hard, kept pursuing it, you know, just absorbing as much information as I could around me. And right as I graduated, I got a phone call. Excuse me, let me back up. While I was in school here, we were playing in a band. There's a couple of us that played around, trying to get a record deal, trying to, you know, do all that. And we played in front of different publishers, just trying to get more songs, trying to get our name out there. And this one particular place that we played in front of, there was a producer in the room. I didn't even know he was there. I'd heard of his name, but I didn't really know him personally. But he was in the room. And so little did I know, 2 months later, the management company of one of the groups that he was producing, the management company called me. And they said, well, Doug Johnson just heard you a couple of months ago, and he said that you're the guy. So you're the guy. So, of course, I said, well, do you want me to come in and play for you? Do you want me to send something I played on? He goes, no, you're the guy. I said, okay. So I went out and I toured. It was a group called the Wilkinsons. So I went out and toured with the Wilkinsons for a couple of years. Our first gig was actually on the Alan Jackson stage. So we were opening up for Alan Jackson in the fall of that year. And soon after that, I got in a band that we did get a record deal. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes, but it's a band called Pin Monkey. And we were signed to RCA. So that was cool. So after the band kind of lost its deal and we're on a decline and all that good stuff, or bad stuff, depending on where you see yourself, I got a phone call from Keith Urban's people, and they said, we need a slide player, and we heard you're the guy, so you're the guy. So I said, okay, do I need to play for you? And they said, no, we're good. Just come on. And so I went and did a couple of tours with Keith Urban. Then a little after that, I got a phone call at the house from Kenny Loggins personally. Kenny Loggins called me, which of course Footloose is now a big thing, but Kenny also did Danger Zone, for some of you who may not know. And of course he's just a legend back from the 70s. He called me and he said, Chris Rodriguez, who I had played with Keith Urban, Chris Rodriguez said that you're the guy because I'm needing a slide player for this next tour, so you're the guy. I said, do I need to send anything and let you hear what I sound like? He said, nope. Be in LA in 2 weeks, and we're going to start rehearsals, and then we'll be on the road. I said, okay. So I was out with Kenny Loggins, and then Carrie Underwood's people called me. And I was actually doing a writing session here in Nashville, walking into a session, and the music director called me, and he said, we're looking for a slide player, and we want you, can you meet with management this afternoon at 4 o'clock? I said, okay, well, do I need to go get my guitar? And he goes, no, you're the guy. So if you see a pattern here, everything that's ever happened to me is you're the guy. So here's a question for you. How can you prepare for that moment of you're the guy, or gal, as it may be? How can you prepare for that moment when someone comes up to you and they say, what's your name? Andy. What are you doing here at school?
I'm using music business.
Music business. All right, so what if someone came up to you and said, all right, you're the guy for this gig. We didn't consider anybody else in the world. After you came in and interviewed for this position, you're the guy. Makes you feel pretty good, doesn't it? He's nodding his head like, oh, yeah. So here you go. There's one of my books. There you go. Hang on to that and read it. So that's what you got to prepare for is you're the guy moment. And the great thing about where you guys are right now, where you're sitting right here, this is like one of the best schools, I think the best school, especially music business-wise, in the world. As I tour around with different people and we start talking about music business stuff, and by the way, Belmont didn't pay me, so not yet. No. People just dream of coming to school here. So really just dig in because you have thousands of resources here. So many resources both here on campus and just around campus. So, really take an advantage of that. And one of the advantages that I took of that a couple of years ago, as you can imagine, playing with Kenny Loggins and Keith Urban and Carrie Underwood, the number one question I get is, man, how'd you get a gig with those people? And as I just unpacked for you, it's not one decision that I made. It's a decision over a time that really caused different things to happen for me. A lot of people say, well, you're just lucky. No. I would say I'm fortunate. Luck is when you go down here and buy a lottery ticket and you win. That's luck. Being fortunate is when you prepare and you're always prepared and you keep pushing yourself forward, setting goals and moving forward. That's what I call being fortunate. And so I couldn't ever answer the question to people. So that's why I decided to write a book. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to write a book. Where do I even begin? And so the guy that I called was Mr. Don Cusick, and he actually really helped me out, mentored me through the whole book process of this book right here. So
He said, you're the guy.
I said, you're the guy. So anyway, so let's talk a little bit here then.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that is interesting in this book, it's a lot of things interesting in this book, but the fact of how you prepare on the road. Because the road can be, when you're young and have never been on the road, it's a glamorous thing and would it be cool, but it can really drain you. Mm-hmm. And you've got to be in top shape. Talk a little bit about how go through your preparation for playing.
For playing on the road, especially what I do now is, because I have a studio in my house, I'll dump whatever I'm playing, because a lot of times now they'll just send music to you, and you may have one rehearsal, and then you're out, on the road playing in front of people. So a lot of times I'll have a work tape of some sort that they'll give me. I dump it into my Pro Tools rig, and then I'll play and practice at home, recording myself, going back, listening to it, and it's painful. I mean, I tell you, it's like, you hear the mistake, and you're like, my gosh, how could I make that mistake? And then you do it again. You make the same mistake. You're like, my goodness, am I an idiot here? But you make all those mistakes at your house, or in your studio. So then whenever you get on the job, you're just playing through it, and people are like, wow, he just picked it right up. You know, he must be really good because he just got it the first time around, which no, I'm not that good. I just prepared for it and just practiced through it. But everything else, I mean, being on the road, it's no walk in the park. It's definitely a survival for one to stay fit, to eat as good as you can, which, I mean, if anyone has traveled any time at all, you know, it's pretty much just always fried foods, it seems like, and airport food and everything else. So it's always a means to, you know, try to stay healthy and not get sick. With Carrie, we have 8 of us on one bus. She's not on it with us, just the band. And so if one person gets sick, well, it's kind of bad news for everybody. And so I'm not a germ freak, but I'm close to it. I'm one step away from it. So I always have the Lysol can, like spraying down doorknobs and whatever, anything that people's touching, so, you know, no one else will get sick. So, I mean, that's the thing about being on the road, is just being prepared and trying to just do as much as you can preparation. So whenever something does weird happen, you're able to combat it.
Well, speaking of preparation, you talk about the you're the guy moments.
Mm-hmm.
You're playing out a lot during that period of time.
Right.
You're not sitting at home saying, I wish the phone would ring.
Right.
You're playing, talk a little bit about that. You play over and over and over again, and then there's that guy sitting in the audience or sitting there in the corner. And
exactly. As I give lectures out through through the U.S., throughout the country, that's probably the biggest question. People say, well, how can I get in that inner circle? How can I get, you know, discovered, or, you know, whatever the word they want to use? And my whole thing is, especially in town, in Nashville, just go out and play out. When I was here at school, I was playing all the time, and yes, it was almost always for free. I mean, and it sucks. You know, when you put your time in, and you go and it's just, the artist is not good, or the other musicians are not good, but you still play and you give it your all, because a lot of times there's another musician maybe that's in that band with you that he's probably thinking the same thing you're thinking, and then you guys, you know, somehow end up on another gig together, and then all of a sudden you have an instant bond with each other, you know, because you've been through the foxholes together or whatever. And so that's one thing that I always do, and I always tell people, if your career is kind of stagnating, just get out and start playing with people. Writers always want someone to play with them. If it's just a guy or a girl and their guitar, they always would love for a dobro or fiddle or another guitarist or anything to kind of spruce up or spice up what they're doing out live.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to tell you a story that Minnie Pearl told me many years ago. And she was, her dream was to be on Broadway, and this Oklahoma was premiering, or going to premiere, and she wanted that gig. And the Opry did these tours, and she was in, I think, Kansas somewhere. It was a snowstorm, 15 people in the audience, and she was all upset. You know, the great Minnie Pearl and Roy Acuff, and only 15 people show up. And she just went out and blew off the audience. And she didn't find out till later that the manager of the theater told him, but that the guy who was casting in Oklahoma was in that audience, and he told him, before he left, came here to sign. Her name's Sarah. His name's Sarah Cannon. I came here to sign Sarah, but I would never sign someone who'd blow off an audience like that. And you've talked about that. You don't ever,
right,
no matter how small, you don't ever blow off that audience.
Right. Do we have any artists in here? Anybody going for the artists? Yeah. So this is an important thing for you, exactly what he's talking about here. You know, if you do a show and only just 15 people show up, those are the 15 people you need to cherish. Those are the people that you need to just do whatever they want, because they're there for you. No one else showed up, but they did. And those are going to be your biggest cheerleaders, and they're going to be the biggest people that's going to talk about you, hopefully in a favorable way.
I told Minnie I was going to always tell students that story, and I didn't, so I've lied to her. But anyway, she's gone now. Great lady. Are there questions? We'd like to open up the floor, because I know with this many people, there's bound to be a batch of questions for Chad. Anybody have a question?
Yes, ma'am.
What's your favorite and least favorite part about going out on the road?
The least favorite part is being away from home. That's probably one of the hardest things. I'm married, and so, you know, and thank goodness my wife is very understanding of, you know, what I do. And so when I come home, I mean, our idea of fun is sitting in the backyard, because the last thing I want to do is go out and be in a bunch of people, because that's all I do. And the last thing I really want is entertainment, because that's what I do. The best part is meeting people, making people laugh, making people smile, especially on stage when you can connect with people out in the audience. That's to me is truly one of the best things. And I think that's what keeps a lot of musicians and artists going, because you got to realize we're only on stage 90 minutes, and then everything else is hotel to hotel, getting your bags, unloading, packing up, and we've got it good because we have techs and everything else. We just show up and play. So that's definitely, that's part of it.
He's been married 6 years and has no kids, so what does that tell you about being on the road?
Yeah, that's right. So a lot of people say, well, if you've been married 6 years, you've been on the road 6 years, so you've only been married really 3 years, right? He goes, no.
Are there more questions? Well, I was going to ask you about the gear you got. Oh, we've got.
Yes, sir.
So obviously you mentioned that you're married. Like, what kind of, I guess, strains do you find in your relationship? Because I know a lot of people, especially in college, they're like, oh, well, I've got to find my spouse in college. But then you also have the artist that wants to go and live out on the road. So can you kind of talk about strains on your relationships, what you guys have to fight through necessarily?
Right. Well, I mean, the biggest thing is, and people say it all the time, and it's the truth, is communication. And thank goodness, because of cell phones now, texting, video, Skype or iChat, whatever, that makes it a little bit easier. We started dating whenever I was out with Keith Urban. And so with Keith, it's almost like, with Carrie, it's pretty much Carrie's definitely the artist. Everyone's looking at the blonde girl, right? No one cares about us. So they're looking at the blonde girl. With Keith, of course, they're still looking at Keith, but it's kind of Keith and his band. And so we were very much a part of his musicality and everything else. And so a lot of times when we'd go to our hotel, fans would be waiting in the lobby for us, which was kind of unnerving at 3 o'clock in the morning. We're just getting up, rolling in off the bus. And so, and there's a few times when my wife would go to dates with us, go on, not really on the road, but just would meet up and come see a show. When we'd walk out to the bus, I told her, I said, just don't look at anything, just walk to the bus. Because as soon as we came out, girls were screaming, and it's the whole rock star kind of thing. And so she kind of got a taste of that while we were dating. So, not that helps any at all, but that was definitely, it wasn't where we just got married, then all of a sudden she was exposed to all of this. So, but yeah, it's a strain, but it's all about communication, it really is. And she has some really nice perks, because anytime we do American Idol, we go out to L.A. and we're there for the whole week. So a lot of times I'll fly her out, and we'll go and just explore the town. And same thing with New York. So anytime we're at a residency for about a week or more, I'll fly her out so we can hang out.
Talk about your gear. Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to. Somebody else.
You said one of your favorite things was when you know you've connected with the audience. And
Right.
It sounds like it's a different experience maybe with Keith because you're part of the band.
Right.
Than it is with Carrie.
It is.
What do you mean by, or how do you know you've connected in those different?
It's really just an internal feeling that and some nights it's a magical thing where things are just going great and things are just happening and you're like, this is great. And with Keith, it was a lot different because we were toward the edge of the stage. We were downstage, so we could see everybody. Whereas with Carrie, a lot of times we're kind of back. And it's kind of hard to see a lot of people. But normally we see at least the first 3 rows. So kind of one of the tricks that I talk about in the book is connect with the first 3 rows and then look at the exit signs and smile at the exit signs. And people think, they're way back there in the back, they're thinking, oh my gosh, he's looking right at me. So it's kind of a Broadway trick. But and also, a lot of times if you get nervous in front of people, that's another thing you can do is just look at the exit signs. But you may be in the wrong business. If
you're looking at the exit sign, yeah.
Yes, sir.
So when you're playing with, say, Carrie Underwood, that's the only person you play with for that period of time, that tour? Or you don't switch out or anything?
It is. No, it's pretty much, we commit to be with her for album cycles. And so that's what we do. But, I also do a lot of session work. So And now with technology, thank goodness, I do a lot of e-sessions. So people send me tracks from all over, literally the world, and I have all my guitars there in my studio, so I'm able to just record for them. I've got a guy in London. I did a whole album with a guy in Switzerland. Didn't even meet the guy till he came to Nashville to mix it. All people throughout the U.S. And then now I just got this guy in Italy, and it's a heavy metal rock band, and he wanted pedal steel guitar on it. And his English is really broken up, so he'd send me these emails, and it would just be a couple of lines, and it would take me probably about 10 minutes to figure out what he's wanting, because he sent me an email after I sent him a track back, and he goes, I need more country music in verse 2. And so what he was saying, I need more pedal steel in verse 2. So anyway, but he told one of his buddies about me, and his buddy just sent me another song yesterday. So that's been really good. But that's, a lot of things I do, off to the side. But in terms of like doing another tour, Carrie's the only one, mainly on the road.
Talk about the difference between being a studio musician and a road musician. Mm-hmm. Different type of attitudes.
It is, and that's actually, the lines are kind of being blurred these days, mm-hmm. because a lot of the session work is going more to what I was talking about with e-sessions, doing
mm-hmm.
things over the internet, and labels consolidating, budgets being cut back, and things of that nature. And so you have people like Chris McHugh, who's out with Keith. Chris is one of the #1 session drummers in Nashville, but he goes out and tours with Keith. So there's a lot of that going
mm-hmm.
on. And then there's a lot of touring musicians now getting more into the session work, mm-hmm. like myself. So
there's no real A-team like there used to be.
No.
They play on all the records, and somebody else plays on the road there.
Right.
Yeah.
But typically that's what happens, like with Carrie. They have their own studio guys
uh-huh.
that Mark Bright, her producer, uses, and then the road band, which we've all been together for about 4 years now, 4.5, all of us. So we pick it up and take it from there and take it to the people.
When she cuts an album, you get tape, CD, whatever it is, and you sit down and listen to it and practice all those songs?
Right. And it happens a couple of different ways for a lot of different artists. Sometimes mm-hmm. artists will send you, like what was great with Kenny Loggins, he sent me tracks where all the music was in the left speaker, and then my part was in the right.
Mm-hmm.
So you could isolate it, and you could hear exactly what what that player was doing. Sometimes with the other artists, they'll just send you mm-hmm. just the 2 mix, the master. And then there's been a couple of artists where you just show up, they come in, they play the song, you chart it out, and then you start playing it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's nerve-wracking. Just to learn all the licks right there on the spot,
yeah.
and to move forward with it. Because they're not wanting the music to leak. That's why the purpose of that.
Yeah. You got to be real good and real fast.
Yes. With a good attitude.
Yeah, and that's key. More questions?
Right here.
I was going to ask, so like on a Carrie Underwood song, you can't kind of mix things up at all, can you?
We do.
I don't know.
Yeah, we do.
You do?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much, and every artist is different. And some artists, they want it exactly the same, night after night after night. With Carrie, it's really good because we do get a lot of flexibility in what we do. What's funny is to listen to like a board tape from the, maybe the 3rd show in of a tour, and then listen to it like mm-hmm. one of the last shows, because we're playing quite a bit different stuff than what we normally, because you just kind of inch it along as the tour goes on. And I've always heard of like some Broadway people where they'll actually, because they do the same thing, just a little improv here and there, where they have to pretty much just do another rehearsal and take it back to what it was
mm-hmm.
supposed to be.
Yeah.
Because you don't realize you're inching along just, your own little personality into there. But yeah, fortunately, pretty much everyone I've ever played with, it's been, they've pretty much been hiring me because of me. So that's very nice.
You were talking one time about, when you were, I think, with Keith, he invites you to shine, but there is a certain point where you can't be ahead of him, that you have to be aware that he stays the star even though you're shining.
Well, and the good thing with Keith was he told us, he said, man, he goes, don't worry about upstaging me. If you guys want to go in there and put your toes over the stage and just rock out, go do it. I mean, who's going to upstage Keith Urban?
Yeah.
So I know I'm not. So that was never a concern. But there have been some artists where, they're kind of like, if we're in this line, you need to be back behind us.
Yeah.
You know.
Be aware of that.
Little-
I am the star.
Yeah, that's right.
In the score, but I am the star. More questions?
Yes, sir.
Could you take us like through a day? Say like you arrive at your show, your venue in the morning, and then what happens up until the show?
Okay, let me do it a little bit different. So we play our show. So it's at night. We play our show. Then afterwards we get on the bus, and then typically they have after show food for us. And this is for like pretty much any major tour. They have after show food, and of course it's always like pizza or just something, just pasta or something heavy. You know, it's almost midnight, and the last thing you want is something like that to go to sleep. But sometimes we get healthy stuff. Sorry, I digress just a little bit. But so we get that, and then depending on where we're going, usually it's about a 4 to 6 hour drive. They try to keep the tour kind of, you know, making sense in terms of our drivers. With Carrie, I think we had 11 trucks and 9 buses. So they try to keep everything where we're not driving across country all the time because it's very expensive. So we do that, get to the hotel anywhere from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock in the morning, usually stroll in, get to your room, get another couple hours sleep, wake up, work out. If you're in a cool area in town, I always like to get out and explore and just kind of meet new people and just, you know, see the shops. Do that, and then pretty much about mid-afternoon we'll go to the venue and we'll do our sound check, eat supper, hang out for another 3 to 4 hours, then go play our show. And then after that, hop back on the bus, and it's like Groundhog Day, the Bill Murray movie. It's the same thing over and over and over. And a lot of the venues, they look the same. And so you pretty much just walk into this concrete building, and it looks like yesterday. And then you got to find your way. And they always have like these big signs directing us to like catering, dressing rooms, stage. And so that, because you're just a lost pup, you're just like, I don't know where I'm going. So, yes.
Where's the coolest city that you played in? Your favorite city?
Cool. One of my favorite is Vancouver, British Columbia. Another one is Cologne, Germany, that I did with Keith, and then Sydney with Keith. And that's a great thing about music. It's literally taken me around the world multiple times. With Keith, we circled the globe 2 or 3 times in 1 year, and then I've been fortunate enough to do some USO tours, to go over to Iraq, Afghanistan, Kuwait, Qatar, Turkey, Germany, and perform for the troops over there, and fly in the Black Hawks and shoot some guns and.
But don't they pare the band down on those? They don't take everybody.
Well, with that one, it was with Jamie O'Neill.
Uh-huh.
And so Jamie and I was the music director for that, so we pulled together, I think we just had a 4-piece.
Yeah.
And so it was us and John Popper, the guy from Blues Travelers, the harmonica player. And so we had a great time just tooling around. And then the second time I went back was with a Texas guy, and this is what I call the blue collar tour, where every day we're schlepping our gear into a Black Hawk, and then we'd hop into the other one and then fly out. And then, set everything up, perform, hang out with the troops, and then the next morning, throw everything in the Black Hawk and go to another one.
You don't do 9 buses and 20 trucks?
No, not so much.
Not in Afghanistan. No.
That was really interesting, and it was really an honor to do that.
Yeah.
One other really interesting thing we did was, this was with Carrie. We flew to Singapore, and we were on the ground probably less time than what we were in the air. We flew over to open up a mall, like an upscale mall, and they wanted Carrie Underwood. So, okay. So we all towed it over to Singapore, which I think the flight was 26 hours, something like that. And so then we were there for about 24, and then flew back. So,
got a question back there.
Was that mall called Ion?
I'm sorry?
Was that mall called Ion?
Maybe so, yeah.
Orchard Road?
Yeah.
I remember, I think I saw you there.
Oh,
Well, now that's a true fan, to follow you all the way here.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Nice.
Chris in the back there, yeah.
Oh, I was actually just going to ask about yours. You pointed me, right?
Yeah. And if not, speak anyway.
About on the USO, which bases you go to specifically?
Man, I mean, I know we were in like Ramstein, Germany, and Turkey, Incirlik, Turkey, and then in Kuwait, I can't remember. I mean, all these, they had such
Did
crazy
you do it,
names.
like, in theater, like?
Oh yeah, we were at War Horse, and we did, yeah, kind of all, especially the second time we were in Iraq. It was pretty much all in theater. So it was amazing. Were you in the service? Were you over there? Thank you for your service.
I wasn't busy.
I'm sorry.
I said I didn't have anything else to do.
Oh. What were the questions?
How often did you play when you were a student here?
I'm sorry.
How often did you play when you were a student?
Oh, all the time. And I was a music business student, but you know, I did a bunch of stuff in the music department, and which made a lot of the music guys mad. but I took lessons and played in the bluegrass band over there, and did a couple of their showcases, which made the guitar majors really mad.
You were an Eagle Scout.
I am an Eagle Scout.
Not were. Are.
I are.
Oh,
That's
I
right.
are an Eagle Scout. Did that help you in your career?
I think, yeah, just growing up. I mean, just growing, you know, just being prepared. I mean, that's the
Trustworthy
motto.
and loyal. And,
yeah. You know, I think, you know, with everything that happens in your life, be it good or bad, I think if you learn from the bad stuff,
Yeah.
I think it does mold who you are as a person.
Yeah.
Eventually.
All right. Here's a question.
When you were going to Belmont, what was your original plan? I guess, well, not really a plan, but like, what did you really want to do? Like, was it always that you wanted to play, or was there other things that you wanted to do?
No, I always wanted to play, and I grew up in Kingsport, Tennessee, Northeast Tennessee, and my dad, who's also a singer-songwriter, he never made it, but I mean, he got like a song by Conway and Loretta, recorded it, you know, and almost made it, but never did. But he always told my brother and I, my brother's also a musician, he plays bass for Joe Nichols, who's a country guy, and my dad always told us, he said, if you want to do this music thing seriously, don't ever get a job with benefits. Now you got to remember, this is back in the early 90s when benefits was what everybody, I mean, you got to go get a job, a good job, and get the gold watch and get benefits and all that stuff. He told us the exact opposite. He said, don't do that if you want to do music, because you're going to get complacent and you're not going to pursue your music. So I pretty much, that's the way I've always been my whole life. I mean, I do have, you know, an IRA, and I do have health insurance and all that stuff, so it's not like I just don't do without, but I've always flown without a net in terms of like the benefit job and the secure stuff that all of a sudden people is not so secure. And so then the second thing my dad said is, if you want to do this music thing, and obviously we're in country music, he said you need to move to Nashville. So my brother went to the other school down the street, MTSU, and then I came here to Belmont. And because that's what I thought would be great. And while I was here at school, I worked my tail off. I was an RA. I worked at the Country Music Hall of Fame, because I thought if I'm going to be in country music, why not learn about the history and get paid for it? So I thought it's a win-win. Did as much interning as I could, and you know, and just kind of build it. So does that answer?
Some of the places that you interned at?
I interned. I first started out with a girl named Jenny Johnson, and she was Jerry Crutchfield's assistant, which Jerry was over MCA Music Publishing at the time. So that was my very first one. There was a couple of others. I was with her actually for a couple of years, and then eventually I got with Starstruck Entertainment, and I worked in their mailroom, but I got internship credit for that. So, and the internships, I mean, that's your bread and butter, because it's not necessarily finding your perfect job or finding your perfect career or calling. It's sometimes finding out what you don't want to do, and you're only doing it for 4 months, so why not go ahead and just get it out of the way and say, well, Jenny Johnson was a production assistant. I'm like, I don't ever want to do that. No offense to anybody that wants to do it. It's not made for me. And so that was a really eye-opening experience. The other thing that happened with my internship was this. David Herrera is he still here? David Herrera was the intern guy, and I called him and I said, David, I said, I'm going to be in town over the summer, so anything you get, whether it pays or not, give me a shout. And so he called me a couple of days later and he said, there's this gig that's going on for the Fanfare, which is now CMA Music Fest, but it's Fanfare down at the fairgrounds. He said, you'll be handing out 8x10s for Allison Krauss, and they're going to pay you $50 for 8 hours or something like that. And I said, I'll do it, absolutely. So I started working with Allison Krauss's day-to-day guy at the time, Norm Parento. And Norman, he would call me every now and again when he would do other little projects around town where he just needs an extra body to help facilitate the event. And one day he came to me and he goes, I've never heard you play guitar at all, and dobro. And he goes, but a buddy of mine, he's going to do this thing at the Bluebird next week, and he's looking for a dobro player. Why don't you just go do that? I said, you're the guy. And so he called, put me in touch with a guy named Michael Reynolds. And Michael and I we did that. It went great. We started playing out around town. Decided to add a bass player. Pulled my brother in. He played bass, got a drummer. And then eventually we got signed to RCA. And then we did 4 albums. So had it not been for Norm, me just taking that $50 for 8 hours in the hot sun, I would have never have met Michael Reynolds.
That's what I noticed about Chad and a handful of other students, that whenever an opportunity came up, they took it. They didn't ask how much money. They didn't ask how long is it going to be. They didn't ask, what are my benefits. They didn't ask, what are you going to do for me if I do this? They just took the opportunity. And sometimes you're banging your head against the wall, and sometimes you're going, not the best choice, but those opportunities, each time a little door opens.
Right. And until you go and just do it, you never know what's going to happen. And especially some of you, the younger people, you really have the time to do some of this stuff. So as you get older, it kind of changes just a little bit because you have more responsibility, and I know I'll probably sound like your dad and all this kind of stuff, but you have more stuff that you just have to take care of. And so the more you can do now, the better off you're going to be later. I promise you.
Yeah. Build that foundation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Kind of building on that question, did you have a point while you're going to school where you had an offer to go on a tour, and you had to weigh your options of should I stay in school or should I do this now because there's an opportunity now?
Well, and that's actually, I came here in '94 and I graduated in December of '97 with my music business because I went all year round because I didn't want to move back to Kingsport. That's really the answer. But I graduated early because the band that I was in, where the producer heard me, we were kind of getting some things going, and I thought, well, if we get signed, I want to at least have a degree. And so I thought, let's go ahead and graduate, and then if we don't get signed, I can just stay in for another semester and get my marketing degree. And we didn't get signed, so that's why I stayed in and got the marketing degree. But I did get a couple of different offers, and it was just very weekend, what we call weekend warriors, where you just go out for the weekend and come back. And I did that, but no long tours at that time. Yes, ma'am.
So I heard you might have a mailing list?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm supposed to announce that. If you want to be on his email list, sign up.
Well, what we're working on doing in conjunction with the book and a lot of the other speaking dates that I'm doing is we're going to do probably a quarterly newsletter. So it's not like a bunch of just crap. It's going to be really just content oriented. And if you want to sign up, I'd love for you to sign up, and that'd be great.
I've been wanting to ask you your gear. What kind of stuff do you play?
Oh, I got all kinds of stuff. And actually, just the other day, I had a couple of guys come over to the house, and we cataloged everything because I didn't know how many guitars I had.
Okay.
And so
And the answer is
30.
30. Woo.
And equal 30, yeah.
Times 6.
Yeah. So no, I've got, when I first got started with everything, I was all about endorsements. I'm like, oh, I want to get an endorsement, because that's what every guitar player, that's all you think about is endorsements. And so and then as time has gone past, I've kind of pulled that back, and pretty much just what I really want to play is what I play, whether I buy it or whether they give it to me. And so, and then a couple of years ago, I pretty much went through and sold off a bunch of stuff to upgrade to a different level. So I kept my Gibson J45, Martin D18, bunch of Larrabee guitars, things like that, and also Dobros as well. So, but yeah, I've got a lot of guitars and toys.
Any brand that you particularly favor, or just whatever?
My pedal steel is a Mullen pedal steel guitar. This is my kind of my workhorse Dobro, and then National. I like Nationals a lot,
Yeah.
and Gibson.
Yeah.
So really, for me, like all of my guitars, they're like a little person, and they have like their little individual personality. So, because I have to answer this question all the time with my wife. She's like, "You want another guitar? Why? You've got so many." Like, well, this one sounds different than any one of those. So, I'm sure you know about that too, right, Sarah?
Well, we were talking about just before the session, songwriters having to diversify their revenue streams, and I'm just wondering along the lines of how does that work for you? And are there ways that you know, through endorsements, how are you as a musician diversifying revenue streams?
Right.
For your
Yeah, definitely as a musician, it's really good to diversify, whether you're playing out with different people, doing the E-sessions, doing the studio work. Really endorsements, they don't pay, especially side musicians, a whole lot of money. There's not a lot of money exchanged there. It's just pretty much just product that they give you. For me, one thing I'm diversifying is also with the book, with speaking dates. I probably have about 10 different things that I'm doing, but it's all revolved around music. And it's all revolved about everything I already do, consulting with different musicians and things like that. So I think it's really important because a lot of times musicians, they'll just be with one artist and all of a sudden that artist decides to go into acting or make a rock album or whatever. I mean, the reasons are just crazy, some of them. But and then there they are without a gig. So I always feel like you need to have something on the back burner, whether you have your little side project of making an album yourself or anything else. But because once the water stops, the drain stops, it's hard to start over. Whereas if you have something going already on the side, it's easier to pick it up and keep moving forth with it.
That's another thing I've noticed about Chad. A lot of road musicians, when they get off the road, they just sort of stay in bed. Or when they're on the road, they're just sort of watching cartoons,
right,
or something. And you don't do that. You
No,
stay active. You've always got something that you're working on.
I do.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let Don write my biography, or be my agent one.
The question over there.
Yes.
When you're not on tour, what are some side projects that you do?
I've been producing a band called the Devious Angels, and so they're starting to pick up, and we're getting some good traction. It's a guy and a girl. Basically, the guy is a big Graham Parsons fan, but he was in a band called the Pink Spiders, which I don't know if we have any guys.
I've heard of
He was
that.
the bass player for those guys, and then the girl's just beautiful girl that sings demos around town, and so they got together, started writing, and so we did an EP on them. And I've been actually doing a lot of producing. There's another guy from Ohio that came down that I produced his work as well. So definitely production stuff, songwriting, always writing in terms of books, blogs, things of that nature. By the way, I'm on Twitter at Chad Jeffers or Facebook Chad Jeffers. Just Google it and it'll be there. Yes, sir.
As far as, say, I'm just going to use the example, Carrie Underwood. Does she tell you what she wants if, like, you're not playing what she wants? Like, can she?
Absolutely.
Like, she knows like, chords and all that stuff. Say, hey, I want this, that.
Right. Yeah. Whenever you play for an artist, any artist, they're the boss, and if they say, "Can you play an E chord over a D chord and it sounds like crap?" You're like, "Sure." If that's what they want, they're the ones that are paying the bills or paying you. But yes, and with Carrie, this is actually the first time I've ever had a wardrobe. Was this last tour with her, and of course all of us, all the musicians, were like, "You got to be kidding!" Because when I was with Keith, it was jeans and a T-shirt, and that's on a dressy day. And so with Carrie, it's like they had this time period kind of thing. They wanted everyone to be, we didn't dress in costumes or like matching suits or anything, but it turned out to be great because they had a stylist come in. We got like 4 or 5 different outfits. At the end of a show, this is the best part. We just threw it in a hamper and walked out. So they took care of all the clothes and everything. So
yeah,
turned out great for us after we were grumbling about it. So.
I always thought if you couldn't have rhinestones, why bother? Why be in a band? I want flashy stuff.
I was going to say, I've seen both Keith and Carrie's show, and they're drastically different. One is very theatrical and almost like a Broadway show, and Keith's is very much a jam session.
Right.
Which one do you prefer, and which are the pros and cons?
Well, they both have pros and cons. With Keith, Keith was great. Kenny Loggins was pretty much the most musical gig I've ever had in terms of just, we would have an hour to 2 hour sound checks. He was always changing things up, different arrangements of songs. And so, like, literally that night you'd be playing, you're like, okay, did he change this was that last night or is that tonight? And so you couldn't hardly remember, so you had to stay on your toes. In terms of everything else, it's just different. It's apples and oranges.
Right.
And like anything, whenever you do one thing all the time, the other looks appealing, and then when you do the other thing, the jam looks appealing. So,
Keep it changing up.
right.
Any more questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi. I was just wondering how your relationship with the artist affects how much you want to play with, like, affects your performance, I guess.
It does. And I mean, thank goodness. I've always been with great artists. Really have. I mean, just solid people and, you know, just no crazy business. So that's always been really, that's I think, a character thing for a lot of musicians.
Is there anything that they'll specifically do that may make you, I don't know, like what can an artist do to make a musician, I guess, want to play for them more or something?
That's a good question. I think you should write a book about that if you find the answer. I don't really know. I mean, I think if anything, I think positive feedback, like anything else, is the best thing. And acknowledging. I know a lot of artists, they're really good with acknowledging, like when they win an award. That makes everybody feel good.
Plain old talent.
Plain old talent, that's right.
Yeah. Well, Chad, how would you like to play another tune?
You guys want to hear another tune? Sure. Yeah. Alrighty. And by the way, I did bring some books. They're normally $15, but for you guys, because you're so great today, they're $10.
$9.99. $9.99. $9.99. Oh.
So you can, and they're right over here. So this is a little.
It's a blue light special. Right?
Medley, yeah.
It's great to have you back. I'm
Well,
not going
thank
to give
you.
you any homework this time. And I know that the students here appreciate it. One more time. Let's give Chad a hand.
Thank you, guys.
Get a
You're
book on the way
dismissed.
out.
That's
Over here.
$9.99. $9.99.